This is delightful. I'm so glad we came here. Feel those vibrations at Camp Video Games. Campers, it's a big day today. We are at the finish line of the Legend of Zelda cartoon series from 1989 as part of the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, the only Zelda cartoon I think we'll ever need. Who's that laughing over there? That's Junior Counselor Josh.
Junior Camp Counselor Josh here, happy to invite campers of the world to unite as we explore the Moblins Are Revolting.
Yes. This is Junior Camp Counselor Sean. You're listening to Camp Video Games. We like to talk about video game adaptations and some video games. The Moblins Are Revolting. It's high time. We're overdue for a change in the upper class here. We need to level the playing field. We need to make sure everyone's taken care of and not just those who can pay, the exorbitant prices for what it takes to live a decent life in America. Or Hyrule, I mean.
The way I could pop off by the time we reach the end of this episode. We'll see if I have the energy for it. But for starters, this episode, final episode of the show.
Yeah.
Worth noting, Bob Forward, it's been commissioned.
Showrunner, producer, head writer.
Write the show. Has given the reins of writing credit for the final episode to his teenage sister again, Eve Forward.
Yeah, it's wild. He's like, I don't know, sis. You take the blame for why this show got canceled.
I'm gonna put on record here. You brought this up at some point. I honestly would love if you want to attempt to reach out to Bob Forward. I would love to get the opportunity to interview him.
Yeah,
about
we'll work on it.
What was happening here? Like deeper than that oral history that Polygon did that we started with, which was fantastic.
Really set the foundation at least.
Yeah.
Gave us some nice places to jump off from in terms of where to ask questions.
I feel like we have now done the work to have earned the right to dive deeper with him.
I completely agree. Since if you've been a listener since the beginning and you've stuck along with us through this entire series, you're gonna allow me to just go off a little bit, just for a second. I left the newspaper industry this year after dang near 15 years in the industry, and I still need to use my journalism brain somehow. And if that means I just get to interview people who worked on the shows and video games that I grew up digesting, then so be it. I'll have you know that I've interviewed the author of the Resident Evil novelizations just on the side already. Not for Camp Video Games specifically. That was before this show started, but it's something I've been sitting on, and I think it's also high time to embrace that direction, and where else we can go for conversations around these things. It's maybe not just us reviewing stuff. It could be, just having guests specific to these properties that we're talking about.
Yeah, because I would love to know, when your teenage sister gets top line writer credit. Yeah. And on a cartoon show in the 1980s, what does that mean? What, was it just she was the story breaker of oh, okay, this happens, or did she actually do scripting?
I would assume because especially with a show like this, you're going to start with a first draft and then it's going to get workshopped to death by the writer's room, or in some cases just by the producers, who are going to nitpick and make sure that you stay to format and that the timing is all right. Because if a teenager knows how to properly pace a script so that you're going to have the right word count of dialogue and action to satisfy the time quota, that's
that's a brilliant young teen.
Teenagers are already smarter than adults in every case. If there's a smart teenager, it's because there's I don't know what point I'm making here, but teens are smarter than us at this point. Like, especially in like with technology. Like, I feel like such a Luddite when I talk with somebody half my age, and I'm just like, can you explain to me how to open a PDF on my phone? So I've got all faith in the world and the Ute. But Eve Forward, yeah, writer extraordinaire. Bob Forward, if you're listening, if you've been, I think he's on our Patreon actually. Yeah, maybe I don't know, no promises, but I promise we'll try.
Yeah, I'd love it. So anyway,
you wanna start us off with what's going on?
The
in this
moblins
episode?
sure are revolting. Once again, we just start straight into the ease of attack, like the ease of the back and forth of the attack between Ganon's crew and the Hyrule Castle protectors of the Triforce. There's two forces of moblins, or not moblins. What are these like
The
rat-looking guys from Zelda 2?
The kangaroo werewolf.
Yeah.
They're called the gorilla.
Yeah. Well, some like they're I guess they're having an uncoordinated attack.
Yeah, it seems like two different, like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing.
Yeah.
And so, like you've got the moblins that are dressed up like ninjas.
Very cute, by the way.
Very cute. I thought they were cats at first. I was like hoping to like they'd take their mask off and to be like Hello Kitty or something. But they're like grappling onto the castle walls. Yeah, the gorillas, they throw the boomerangs to like make to repel over to Zelda's tower. Okay, so let's see. I think the gorillas are swinging into the window after the ninjas have already infiltrated, and it's just, I mean, this is a comedy of errors. This is bumbling at its best, where no matter what they do, they end up hurting each other unwittingly. Let's see.
Well, it's worth noting that
they're in Link's bedroom right now.
Yeah, through all this, so they're in Link's bedroom, which is where the Triforce is, because he has to be near it to protect it.
Right. So
he's in bed reading comics.
Yes.
The moblins burst through the door. The
gorilla,
the Doritos, whatever they are, they come in through the window. So that like the door has been bust open. These guys have swung through the window. Link does not look up from his comic until they've all bashed heads right in front of the Triforce.
I wonder if Link was like he's like the superhero. And he's like so involved, like invested in what he's reading because he's barely literate.
I strongly believe this version of Link is barely literate. Yeah.
Grappling hooked on phonics worked for me. So they end up doing what in Doom it's called infighting, where you can get monsters to kill each other instead of intervening. We should talk about Doom at some point. I'd really love to get into that too. But basically, like, there's like Link doesn't have to do anything. Like, they just totally wipe each other out, right? Like you've got one of the crossbow bolts ricochets off the ceiling and hits one of the gorillas. I think a boomerang hits a moblin, and then the last one, right? The dagger that falls on the gorilla. It's just so goofy. It's very cartoonish. I feel like there should be some Hanna-Barbera bonk.
It literally falls into his butt crack.
Oh no. Check, please.
And Link does not, like, he looks up from his comic, but he takes no action. He's just like, let's see how this plays out.
Yeah.
And then all of this happens in 15 seconds or so, and then instantly goes back to his comic.
It's so dope. It's like in movies when you you light a fuse to some dynamite and then you just calmly walk away.
Yeah.
You don't even look back when it explodes. Just you're so unfazed.
Yeah. It was a fun little bit.
Yeah. It actually makes Link seem pretty cool in this case. He reads comics. He can't be a dork.
Yeah.
There's also like, okay, so basically like this happens as a result of a lack of coordination between the moblins and the gorilla. Like, almost like, you've got two different special forces that are both trying to accomplish the same task. Did you watch much of the Venture Brothers?
No.
It's one of my favorite TV series ever made. But it's a show that focuses a lot on the minions of supervillains and superheroes. It's more about like the people that serve the big like figures. And yeah, there's just a great bit where like a bunch of the Monarch's minions, and they're these guys that are dressed like giant butterflies. They're trying to assassinate Dr. Venture, where Dr. Baron Underbites, where they all look kind of like Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat. So you got butterfly guys and Sub-Zeros that are both trying to kill like a scientist, and they're like, no, it's our turn to kill him. We tried first. It's just a great like what are we doing here? Like we're here because our bosses didn't coordinate. They didn't do their jobs, and they're getting fed up. Like the Gorilla and the Moblins are like, they're like, this is Ganon's fault.
Yeah.
But they're building steam towards that realization. Go.
If you loved Venture Brothers for that reason, if you have not yet watched Barry on HBO,
I have not.
The Bill Hader show.
Oh, I love Bill Hader.
I think you will love it.
Okay.
That is like a lot of it's. It's like the prestige TV dramedy thing, which is getting a little old at this point. But like the comedy comes from the fact of like you see that exact dynamic you're talking about of like the bad guys, the gangsters, and like their actual day-to-day living. And one of the best characters is this guy NoHo Hank. He's like this like weird albino or not albino, alopecia, like Croatian gay guy who's like. He's fantastic character, like an all-time great character that like truly plays up that element of like getting to see the behind the scenes of why the bad guys are always so bumbling.
Nice. Yeah, I'll check that out. Barry?
Yeah.
Okay. Heck yeah. I love Bill Hader. Fantastic actor. So right, the Gorilla and the Moblins, they're like back in the evil jar. Wait.
Yeah.
That you mean no, they destroyed that. What do you mean? They just completely destroyed the evil jar.
Well, remember what you said in the last episode is they didn't battery backup save this cartoon show, so the evil jar it didn't save that it was destroyed. Very frustrating thing to run into as a gamer.
Yeah, I know. If you want to get the internal batteries replaced on your cartridges, if maybe you're bummed out because you lost your original like Pokemon team on your blue or red or yellow cartridge from back in the day, why don't you go over to Arcade Legacy? They're not sponsoring the show yet, but they're one of my favorite retro gaming spots. I don't know why I'm doing this right now.
So anyway, Ganon punishes them for their bumbling, which is like the final straw.
Yeah, dude, he just like it's such a trope where the mob boss or the supervillain, like instead of like reprimanding their minions, they just like blast them.
Yeah,
like they show their maliciousness and that they don't give a fuck about their team, and so rightfully so. The minions unionize. The way that they do it, Ganon has this staff that shoots a bubble around its target. And the bubble is indestructible to everything except the Triforce of Power, as we learned. Because again, it shoots one of his Moblins with it. The Moblin's floating around, and then it pops the bubble on the glowing red Triforce of Power. And so therein we learned that Ganon has a device that is impervious to all attacks except Triforce, right? Repeating myself. The Moblin takes the scepter and shoots Ganon with it.
Hell yeah, he does.
We got a pig boy in a bubble. Times are changing. The times they are changing. I'm trying to think of other pro union songs, and I'm just like, Woody Guthrie. I don't know, dude. So okay, Ganon, he's in this bubble. The Moblin takes Ganon in bubble form and just throws him down a pit.
Which is amazing. Something we've all had a boss we wish we could have done that too.
Absolutely.
But I will just say, like, at this point, the episode is very pro worker.
Yeah, good
Right?
call. Yeah, for sure.
Like you're rooting for these moblins after you've seen them be abused by their boss wickedly and physically.
Yeah.
And when Ganon gets thrown in the pit by the moblin, like this moblin is the hero of the series at this point. Like
we shall
Link,
be free.
fuck Link and Zelda and their monarchy defending bullshit. These guys are like, nah, we the workers of the world will rise up and run this shit together.
Yes, they seize the means of production and they are united in a common cause. There's no more infighting, no more of this selfless or senseless, self-destruction. We are stronger as one, campers. And that's
right.
why here at Camp Video Games, we are now commune. And campers, go ahead, write to your folks, write to your families. We're going to need 70% of their income for you to stay here at camp.
And once we have their income, it's going to be really important that you cut off all ties with them and you only trust me and Junior Counselor Sean.
Stay tuned for next season of Cult Video Games. Bring your Nikes.
How many more years till Halebop comes back?
Let me check my notes here. Okay, so the Moblin, he goes over the liberator, the folk hero, Moblin. He frees all the evil jar's inhabitants, and he breaks the staff on accident. He doesn't mean it. He hands the staff off to another Moblin. And this is the start of the trending out of the. We're not going to hold the worker on the pedestal much longer after this scene, really, because
unfortunately
the Moblin, he gives the staff to a lesser Moblin. Ooh, that sounds pretty judgy of me, but he's like, whatever you do, don't drop this. The Moblin's like, what? He's like, whatever you do, don't drop this. But the Moblin only hears drop this, so he drops it. It's like, okay, like because the Moblin's not a clear public speaker and he doesn't have the elocution of perhaps a more, maybe a CEO or like a politician. The clear directions are not able to be related as effectively. So already we're seeing that if we leave the workers to their own devices, things might not go as smoothly as you hoped for. That's not my opinion. That's what the show is preaching.
This is very much a show of the end of Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush's 1980s.
I would love to hear Princess Zelda explain trickle-down economics.
You just need to trust the people in charge and sit back and do the labor they tell you for the wage they say you're worth because they know better and it'll just trickle down to you.
Why are we building a water park again? Okay, so out of this, we're gonna get the full roster of monsters here coming out of the evil jar. We've got I've got a list going here. We've got Stalfos, we've got Octorok, we've got Zora, we've got Moblins, we've got Gorilla, Gibdos, Goma, Darknuts. Later, I think we see some Lionel, and then we got those gargoyles that I can't remember their names. Maybe it starts with a V.
Oh, dang it. I forget. I've long lost my...
It's the one where you hit it and then it turns into two keys.
Yeah. And they're instead of just like they all seem they're not down with the evil jar. The Gomas start carrying it and they ride it for some reason. But they seem like down with the evil jar kind of is the vibe.
Yeah, it's weird. I would say it's like what's a good example of like real world, like what maybe they're like modeling this over something like it's 89, so what's happened since then? I don't know. I'm not gonna make a guess.
Anyway, we'll move along to the next scene with Zelda and Link, and a rock comes through the window.
That's right. Yeah, there's a note tied to the rock, thrown through the window, and it's basically telling Zelda to surrender. But the best part of this, okay, so right, you get a rock tied to a note. Usually that means you're going to be threatened. Like that's obviously a threatening way to deliver a message. Although one time, oh my god, I can't believe I did this. I paid my rent. I just put a bunch of cash in an envelope, and then I stuck a knife through the envelope into the door frame. Jesus
That
Christ.
rules.
Jesus Christ, I forgot about that. My 20s were wild. Oh, I also should note that as the monsters were carrying the evil jar, they were like we're gonna get revenge on Ganon. Like they vow revenge. Oh no, I'm sorry, not on Ganon, on Link and Zelda for being such a pain in the ass their entire. Like they still have the same objective after they overthrow Ganon. It seems is to like get the Triforce and defeat Link and Zelda.
Yeah.
The note they tie is for them to surrender, and it's signed by the Brotherhood of Underworld Monsters, aka Bum.
Why they have to call them bums anyway?
Well, I think this is where the forward politics are maybe working their way in. They think that union workers are bums.
Yeah, this is all the rage at the time.
Yeah,
is like the union is the reason that you're not making more money or a better living. And oh, gee, golly, what happened?
Traffic is so bad because of these union construction workers.
Right. And everybody's wages went down while the richest people's income and wealth went up.
Heavy stuff for a 80s kids cartoon.
They didn't know any better. They didn't have 30 years of foresight. And the internet. I think the internet is a big factor in being able to break the curse of American exceptionalism.
Yeah, it's the great equalizer.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because, like I was raised and taught all that, yeah, America's great, rah, rah, rah is like the version of history you're taught. And then like you get the internet, it tells you here's some books you can read. And you go, wait a minute. I only heard one side of this story of a planet of billions of human beings.
Everything changed when I read the Anarchist Cookbook. You ever read it?
No.
It's a wildly irresponsible book to like have available for anyone to read, but it is also it's good. It's a good reading. It's basically just like how to build like smoke bombs and like do all this like nasty shit that can really result in property or personal harm. So use it at will.
Yeah.
Just be responsible and how you direct it.
Unfortunately, the Order of Bum did not read it because they did not come well prepared.
No, it looks like they're like lined up for the siege at Helm's Deep.
Yeah.
Like Zelda and Link, they look outside.
It's like if like the music video for the Monster Mash was the army at Helm's Deep.
That'd be cool. Dude, that's a cool idea. I like that. I bought the record. I bought the full album from Monster Mash. The Boris Pickett in the something. But they got a whole album of like Halloween themed songs where he's in character the entire time. It's got some bangers on it, to be completely frank. The Transylvania Twist, right? Like they mentioned that in the Monster Mash. No, whatever happened to my Transylvania Twist? There is a real Transylvania twist on the album.
That's amazing.
It's so good.
It reminds me of the
oh my god, I love it so much.
The Werewolf Bar Mitzvah parody from 30 Rock.
Spooky, scary.
And it like in the full version. Have you heard the full version of the song?
I didn't know there was a full version.
Yeah, so it's like a 3-second snippet in the show. They
Boys becoming men. Men becoming wolves.
And they made an actual like 3-minute song.
Jeez.
And by the end, it's Tracy's character going back and forth with like the engineer, and like he's doing like a third or fourth verse, and the engineer cuts in. He's like, "Okay, I think we can stop now. The premise is like starting to get a little sweaty." And then Tracy goes, "This whole premise is sweaty," and it just keeps going.
That's great. I didn't know there was a full version. I want to check it out.
It's so good. Anyway.
Right. So we cut back. Okay. So yeah, there's just like lines of enemies, and they've got siege towers. They've got like I don't think they're trebuchets, but they've got stuff ready to like actually declare like a siege on Hyrule Castle. One thing, Hyrule Castle really needs a moat.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're why don't you divert some of that water park construction over to moat construction?
Well, they figured it out by Ocarina of Time. They had a moat in that.
Yeah, but it's full of rupees. You just go for a swim and you're a rich man. God, distribution of wealth. I guess that's, well, you know what? If Hyrule is so wealthy that if you need to pay for a little Lon Lon milk, you just take a dip in the river, and Papa Hyrule's got your back. Uncle Sam, what's the Uncle Zelda or whatever?
There's one of the Zelda channels I've credited on here before. I want to say it's like Moxie Watts has actually done like the economics of Hyrule from game to game, like examining the wealth based on the infrastructure of Hyrule.
That's that reminds me of a book I recently read called, I think it's The Economics of Star Trek. It's basically like what happens to a society when you have unlimited energy, because like with the warp engine discovery, they also just like understand like how to like harness matter and antimatter into like creating infinite energy. And so it's like an economics book on like what happens to an economy if you've got that unlimited resource, and like how scarcity is no longer an issue. And it was quite interesting. It was called Trekonomics.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a completely unrelated recommendation in the Camp Video Games Book Corner. We go back to Ganon. So Ganon's he's falling down like a bottomless pit. It's like the Yiga clan's pit.
Yeah.
And in this bubble, he realizes that he keeps trying to zap his way out. It's like, bro, you've tried this a couple times now. But he is able to conjure a bubble inside the bubble.
I don't understand the why of this or how, but sure.
I have to give a standing ovation to the animators for this scene. Ganon, inside this bubble, he's like a bubble boy. So, big enough for him to stand in, but not really do anything else. He summons the bubble inside, and the way that they animate him getting pushed up to the wall of the bubble as it inflates the rest of the available space, it's not only like it's good physics to some degree, it's very funny.
Yeah,
I got a hoot out of that when I watched it for the first time. It allows him to stop his free fall, and he starts floating his way back up toward the entry of the pit.
And then
we go back to the siege, right? Like we've got the minions. They're trying to storm the castle, and I think they're gonna hang Mike Pence too.
That's the first time I thought about the connection of like, the world's stupidest coup. This is exactly the same energy. I'm just getting like the stupidest people in the world together. And just being like, we're gonna take over.
Oh boy. While their leader is conspicuously absent. Because people in Zelda and Link, they're like, "Where's Ganon? Where's Ganon?" They're like, "He said he'd be here. He's gonna march with us."
Ganon's too busy listening to, oh God, what was it? Like during the coup attempt, Trump was in like some tent listening to some female like ballad song that like there's this hilarious footage of.
Holy moly!
Like the Queenie type music that he's always listening to.
Yeah, God.
But in this case, they tried to get rid of the leader too, and turns out they needed him. This is where it starts to get a little late 80s in its politics of like you
You idiot workers.
Yeah.
You don't know any better. You need us to lord over you.
Yeah, you need micromanagement from some asshole who zaps your ass with a scepter anytime you misspell something in an email. Otherwise, you're too stupid to do your job.
Oh, boy. But could you show me how to open this PDF?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So they're bumbling. One of the examples, this Moblin, he's sitting on top of a battering ram held by a bunch of Zoras, and he's like trying to lay out the plan. He's like, okay, we're going to, like, when I say go, we're going to do it. And they hear, it's kind of it's a dead horse of a joke.
Yeah.
Like, where it's like they hear him say the word he says he's going to say when he needs them to do it. They get it too early. They end up. They just can't do anything right. Like, they're really just painting a broad strokes. Like these minions are only minions at best. They need to be a minion to a pig, an evil pig.
And like the frustrating thing for me as like a real world analog is like that's the type of behavior I've witnessed in a workplace when management insists on having their fingies in the pie. Yeah. It's like, no, actually this was moving really smooth until you decided like, oh shoot, I need to like justify why I get paid 3 times more than you. So I'm going to put my fingers in the pie of something I don't understand and tell you how to do it.
Right. All these Moblins want to do is work remotely. It's not asking that much. It's actually, you'll see if you like check the numbers, that productivity goes way up.
Yeah.
And also, if you're micromanaging, it means you're not helping very much.
Right.
Like, it's literally just like you're not making a big difference if you're micromanaging. Deep breath. So angry. I'm just like I've got so many bosses' faces just like hovering around, and like they're all good people, but when their job dynamic gets in the way of making sense, it's really hard to like justify some of their demands are just so whatever. I'm like, do you know what head counselor Michael Mayonnaise said to me yesterday?
Yeah, go off.
I was doing the dishes, and Michael Mayonnaise walks up behind me, puts his hands around my waist, and he says, "You're doing a good job, but I think you should scrub a little harder." And I'm like, I know how to wash dishes, Mike, okay? And then, I don't remember what happened after that, but...
Had you had a drink around him before that?
So anyway, the Octoroks, they are getting carried away by these gargoyles, and then these archers, they're shooting arrows right at the Octoroks. Can you believe it? Like, they just can't do anything right. And the Gorillas, they start fighting with each other. They're big, they're squat, they got pudgy little tumsies. What else happens, man? We got I don't even remember what we were talking about. So.
All kinds of goofy stuff happens, and Ganon's still floating up in his bubble after Link and Zelda decide, wait a minute, they're all here. They've told us they've banished Ganon.
That's right.
This is our opportunity to get the Triforce of Power.
It's like kind of like cartoonish, and no pun intended, because they're literally a cartoon. But like as soon as they hear Ganon is in a bubble, they're like immediately like, let's steal a Triforce. Like, yeah. It's just like, that's just like, we need more power. We deserve more power. We should take that. Like, we should actually, Moblins, you should work for us.
Yeah. I'm the monarch. I'm the divine royal blood.
Oh yeah.
So I should have the Triforce. It's owed to me.
Man, that is actually like sewn into the Zelda lore, where she's like ordained by the goddess. She's the reincarnation of the goddess, and thus she is of royal blood. Like, wow. Yeah. It is really just like, yeah, like.
Zelda lore is problematic at the end of the day, huh? Can't really get
anytime someone puts a crown on, nothing good comes of it.
Yeah.
Unless it's a crown of thorns.
Yeah. My savior was a carpenter,
My savior was a plumber.
A lowly carpenter.
My savior was super. He had a great brother, too. I think he was Italian. Oh my God, right. We got Lionels. They got these big slingshots. And they're launching, they accidentally launched the Moblin into the courtyard. And, right, Link and Zelda ask where Ganon is. I'm just getting caught up here. Cold cold-blooded killer moment here.
Yeah, so after this is when the Moblin tells him where Ganon is.
He's
right?
an informant basically at that point. He's like, he actually just did them a solid.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, this is building a bridge toward the Moblin community, where it's like, oh, well, like, thank you for bringing us this information, Moblin. Like, you know, if you bring us more information, maybe we could start a productive and equally beneficial relationship, and perhaps your resources could support the, you know, collection of our resources and vice versa. No, Link is just like, oh yeah, I almost forgot, and then he zaps the Moblin before he leaves.
Murders him.
I mean, it's just like, Link, like he's giving, like, I don't know, he's not above giving some like John McClane-esque like, you know, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
There's like a real like Link just like acted upon one of these like major hinge points in history where it's like the universe where he doesn't zap the Moblin and is like, wow, thanks for that information.
Yeah,
we could do this together.
You know, we're not so different. It's I mean,
like could have solved the like an eternity of all Zelda timelines in that moment.
Yeah, Link. He really just showed that he's no better than Ganon.
Right.
Like, he did the exact same thing that we were vilifying Ganon for, except we're supposed to think that it's great that Link did it because we're looking at the enemy, just the capital T, capital E enemy. Okay, we're back at the Piggy Palace, Link and Zelda. It's completely abandoned, except, we got a Dodongo. I think this is the first time we've seen it in the series. It's a big old Triceratops.
Yeah, it almost feels like they just kind of like were like, shoot, we didn't use one of the enemies yet, and just threw it in. Let's kill 15 seconds with this.
If you've played any Zelda game, you know what to do with a Dodongo. Dodongos hate smoke, so you throw bombs in their mouths, and then it gives them a tummy ache, and then they need some omeprazole. Or in this case, they zap back to the evil jar. Yeah.
Which does that mean they just zapped it over to Hyrule Castle if the evil jar was used to carry everyone there?
Yes.
So they sent a dangerous enemy to their unprotected castle that's under siege.
We have not seen. Where's the workforce building the water park? Like, where are they? Like literally, it's like Hyrule Castle. It's such a
that's
lonely
different.
place.
That's in the Marsha Forward universe.
Oh my god! There's a way. No, do not tell me that there's a Legend of Zelda animated series multiverse theory where we have to string.
There is now.
Oh my god! There's now a universe where that is the reality. Oh no.
Anyway, Ganon floats up.
Ganon
in his bubbles.
Yeah. The bubble trick works. So Link's okay. I describe this as Link is now bullying Ganon, who's in the bubble, and Link is like, "Hey, stupid pig, fuck you, Ganon," and like he's pushing him around, and of course he pushes him right onto the Triforce, and
technically Zelda pushes him last,
but Link was instigating, it's his fault this is happening. I think Zelda is more like, "Oh no," and and so pop goes the bubble. Ganon wants his minions back. He's so mad. I think Link and Zelda just escape when Ganon gets freed.
They're like, "Oh, fuck out of here."
They're like, "Oh, I didn't want to work for this." Yeah. Even though we're outnumbering Ganon, he's got none of his minions around.
They were still close enough. They could have just been like, yoink, and grabbed it and gone.
Like Link had his sword, right? Like, we know it just takes 3 zaps and a silver arrow to defeat Ganon. And they've done it before. They've approached him with a lot more confidence when there were more enemies around with Ganon involved. I'm thinking of Sing for the Unicorn, where they like full on duel with Ganon and they zap him to the evil jar, I believe. But in this case, they're like, "Oh, fuck that. Like, I didn't bring any red potions with me, and I haven't saved in a while." We go back to Hyrule Castle. All the minions are defeated at the siege. And Ganon, he's getting all Dracula here. He turns into a mist, or maybe he sends a magic mist.
Yeah, he sends a mist that summons them all back to his lair.
That's weird. That seems really convenient.
Yeah.
And this shit is wild.
Yeah.
Uh,
This is insane. This
walk
is
us
like,
through. Walk us through, dude.
this is the most evil, like sort of justifying the evil of Ganon moment is that he has them all like come back, sort of. Basically, it's literally like to lick his boots, you know. He he's like, see what happens when you rise up.
Yeah.
See what happens when you try to put a third party in between your benevolent employer and the workers. This is what you get. You fail and you all get hurt and et cetera, et cetera. And he literally has them all worshiping him on the ground and says, clean the floor with your tongues.
Yes. It's a shocking depiction of cruelty. It's like this is like what's the Upton Sinclair, the jungle, the exploitation of the working kids in the meat factories. Just like Ganon is like, I've always been rooting for Ganon like throughout this entire series. I'm like, I see his side. Like, I too dislike monarchies, and I think it's time for a new ruler to take over Hyrule. But in this case, not him. Like, he is not any better than.
In a way, you could see this series is sort of like an analogy for the transition from feudal monarchy, into like modern what's the word I'm looking for? Industrial capitalism. Like Ganon is the industrial capitalist.
So Hyrule's just like this far away from crony capitalism. Like like corporatocracy.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, working under my boot is as good as it fucking gets.
It's what you deserve, and it's what you're good at. Damn.
Because the other side is these guys who just zap you.
Link had a chance to be the good guy.
Yeah.
He had a chance to be the most progressive, like, hero of the people.
Yeah. He was the Vladimir Lenin of
Oh my god.
of the moment.
Isn't his body on display?
Yeah, somewhere. I don't know.
Kind of like a shrine of resurrection, if you ask me. Okay. We're not done yet though. So now back at Link and Zelda. Zelda is so mad at Link because he just cost her like the easiest opportunity to have stolen the Triforce of power. So she would have had both of them. Apparently, earlier in this series we were talking about like, are we actually going to see a third Triforce piece? No. Triforce means they're triangles. That is the only reason they're called Triforces is because they're triangles. Like, we have to come to terms with that. There is no Triforce hidden in Link's hand. That doesn't happen until Ocarina of Time. Link wants to smooch. Shocker. Zelda is so mad at him. We get one last "excuse me, princess," just for old time's sake. And okay, this is what really bothers me about Link as like a person in this series specifically, is that he is glad that we're still at status quo, that Triforce is still out of their hands, that Ganon is still a threat, because these are the last lines of the series. The last line that Link speaks in The Legend of Zelda, hopefully, and I mean this with full sincerity, hopefully the last time we ever hear Link talk ever. He says, at least I still have a job.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I don't know how to put into words, which is it's bad for what I'm doing right now. How that makes me feel is that, like, at the end of the day, Link is like, well, I'm looking out for number one, numero uno. I don't care about like all the lives I've thrown under, or like, he is the embodiment of the industrial war complex.
Exactly. He is like grateful for the military industrial complex.
Yep.
That keeps him employed. He has removed himself from the violence it causes, which if you think of, I don't know, if you think of like Zelda and her monarchy as the stand-in for like, I don't know, us, it's like
the United States military.
Yeah. It's like we have all, by like living this day by day, we have all accepted that. At
least I still have a job.
Yeah.
Here at Camp Video Games. No, we're not done yet.
There's also like there's this weird sense of like Zelda being mad at him about that is like there hasn't been much drive previous that she's like, oh, and we need the other Triforce. Until now, she's like, you fucking idiot.
Yes.
We could have had just, this mono, like, whatever, domination of the world.
Absolute
like,
power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah, we find out, like, oh, her goals are the same as Ganon.
Yes.
She's just a pretty white girl with blonde hair.
That is
the
correct.
only difference.
Yes.
They still inflict violence on behalf of their quest to be the ones who control the power, the resource.
It's damning evidence, really, of what we've been saying the entire time is that no one comes out clean in The Legend of Zelda.
I don't know if I can enjoy this series anymore.
We don't have to, Josh. We just finished it, buddy. We did it.
I'm just talking about like Zelda at large. This is sort of the dynamic at play of like just generation after generation. There has to be war. There has to be this pig man versus green boy and pink princess, and it never ends. And if it were any other way, it just wouldn't be right.
I would play a Zelda game where there's like no enemies and nothing, no problems to solve. That sounds real fun.
I would.
I guess it's just like Harvest Moon.
Yeah, I would play a hangout Zelda game.
Yeah.
I would love that. I mean, like, Breath of the Wild kind of comes close in a way. Like, there are moments of, like, and those are my favorite moments. If you go to the Carl's Manager YouTube.
I do, buddy.
And it might be behind my Patreon, but, like, if you watch my playthrough, my funnest moments of this playthrough that I did to review the series are when I'm just, like, hanging out, living with the NPCs. And really living their lives and their schedules. That, like, when I slowed down and did this, I was like, this is my favorite thing about this game. I'd play just this.
Here's what this wouldn't work for the cartoon that we've just been watching, though. Like, there needs to be a conflict for it to stay interesting, because this show has tried having Ganon the non-Ganon episodes were like, where's Ganon? Where's like, and there's a couple of episodes where it's like, what are we doing here? Like spring cleaning. Like, there's episodes where it's like, for the cartoon it wouldn't work. I'd be interested to see how that works for the show. I'm sorry, for a game. But one final thing: no smooch.
Never.
No smooch.
Never a smooch.
I really thought, and maybe the showrunners didn't know that this was going to be the last episode. But like, it's one of those things. It's Chekhov's smooch, right? Like, I mean, that's
never paid off.
Never paid off, and you never got that payoff. And like, I'm okay with that, honestly.
Yeah.
Because what happens? What first comes love, then comes marriage, then comes a little baby in the baby carriage. And I don't want to think about what Link and Zelda would do after that first smooch.
And it continues the cycle of this very dictatorial monarchy of Zelda being all sweet on the outside, but ruling with an iron fist. It goes for another generation.
And also, that would maybe mess with like the reincarnation cycle too, if it starts getting inbred, where like the spirit of the hero, the spirit of the princess, and the spirit of malice.
Yeah.
Like, we can't just start crossing the streams here.
Let's go back to Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom Link, our beautiful asexual, genderqueer, just perfect boy that anyone can project the best of themselves onto. That's the Link we love.
Well put. That is exactly how I want to remember Link. It's just like this like thigh gap twink who just is absolutely silent. That's it, folks. We have busted through every episode of the Legend of Zelda animated series, and it's been a ride. Lots more to come here at Camp Video Games. We're gonna do a couple of one-offs coming up. We're not gonna do an entire season dedicated to just one series. We're gonna explore. We're gonna dip our little camping toes in a couple of different camping pots, and it's exciting to say goodbye to the Legend of Zelda cartoon. It's been a nice ride to some degree. And hanging out with you guys and gals and non-binary pals is what makes camp video games, what it is. And stick around for more.
Yeah. Well said. Wow. I've lived with Zelda since I was about 5 years old. And this past 5 or 6 months is the deepest I've injected it into my veins.
Yeah. Why don't you just summarize all of the Zelda that you've consumed in that time? Like, it's
in the past like 5 or 6 months.
Yeah. It seems like it's been.
Aside from
intensive of specifics, I guess.
Well, aside from another 60 or so hour run through Breath of the Wild that I did to review the show, and that was all streaming. And now I'm at about 100 hours into Tears of the Kingdom, which I paused on when I got to what felt near the end game.
Yeah.
To pick up Final Fantasy 16 and just like let it not be over yet, basically.
Yeah. Let it savor. It's marinating right now.
Yeah. I watched this series with you. I've seen every episode twice now.
Same.
We've talked about all of them
At length.
And then in between that, I've watched dozens and dozens and dozens of hours of other people's YouTube commentary on The Legend of Zelda.
Okay. Yeah, that's quite like you might be an expert at this point, or like how many hours does it take to be an expert at something? Like 10,000.
Well, that's just some made up bullshit by Malcolm Gladwell.
Of course,
but
it's a nice generalization.
I'd say an expert on certain aspects of Zelda. I think I would declare myself an expert on what makes it good. I'm not an expert on the lore of every game because
Same.
I don't even think I played Spirit Tracks or Minish Cap and the other one that like Capcom developed. I forget what it
Swords.
is. Yeah, there's a series of ones that I missed, and I don't really feel like I have to go back. Like the expertise is not like what's important to me. It's like, am I gonna have a good time with the time I spend gaming is the point in my life I'm at. I'm not like, I'm gaming to be an expert on all the lore of everything. And so I can say I know everything about Zelda to who? Like, who fucking cares?
To someone on Reddit.
Yeah. I'm like, I want to know enough that if somebody comes across this podcast, they can be like, hey, he's a fun guy to talk about Zelda with.
Yeah. Because that's the thing. These types of pieces of art are worth discussing as much as you want to discuss it, right? Like we don't try to hit a time quota on this on every episode that we're discussing. It's just like once we've talked about it, we've gotten through it, and like now it's been discussed, and there's other things to discuss around what we've already talked about, but who knows if we'll come back to The Legend of Zelda. I guess it really just depends if there's any other adaptations that are worth going into. In the last 6 months, just to kind of like mirror how you described your consumption, I've played through the first 2 NES Zelda games, beat number 1, and I got farther than usual in number 2. I've played through I got to the Fire Temple in Ocarina of Time, so I played through all the whole child side, did all that, and I also have played probably another like 60-ish hours of Breath of the Wild too. That sounds about where I'm at too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a wild ride, but ready to see what else we can get some good discussions out of. I think it's time to take off this Kokiri hat and maybe put on something different.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah. And I used to be the kind of person. I had this mentality of you should not revisit things you've consumed already. Like you shouldn't rewatch TV shows. You shouldn't rewatch movies. You shouldn't reread books, replay video games, blah, 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 blah. And I don't know why it took me this long to get to it. But somebody, you'll know if you explore my other sort of media critique work that I'm a big fan of and has come up before, is also developer and critic Tim Rogers. And one of his videos recently, he talked, I'll get this kind of wrong, about like you revisit them because you're a different person than you were. And like you're gonna take away different things from the media that you consume in your life at different points in your life.
Absolutely.
So like I know so much more about like I was saying earlier about how like I know what makes a Zelda game good now. Not just like, wow, this is holding my attention. This is pretty colors, you know, it's kind of like the first 15 years of my life with it.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And now it's like fun to be like, oh, as a creative professional, I can like deconstruct what makes this good. And that's like what's fun about doing it also in like podcast form too.
Right. It's nice coming from a background as a critic and as someone who would review art like for a living, to take a bit more casual approach to talking about like specific works, like as we have here on the podcast. It's very nice. I don't it's like I'm taking my tie off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like it's still like we're getting pretty critical and analytical, and like some of the ones we have in the pipeline that we want to do next are interesting to revisit, because I have less deep of a relationship with them than Zelda, but I still enjoyed them as a child and have maybe touched back to them. So it'll be interesting to really look at like what makes this good, what makes this not good. You know?
Do you wanna should we announce what we're doing? We came to the decision.
Yeah. Go for it. Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, next time at Camp Video Games, we're gonna talk Star Fox. There is a incredible fan film made called A Fox in Space. It's a 2-part short little. The first episode is like maybe no more than 20 minutes, and the second episode is about 40 minutes, and it is one of the most like incredibly well made like fan films I've ever seen, and it goes into great detail of the backstory for the Star Fox series. So we're gonna talk about the Super Nintendo title and the Nintendo 64 title, Star Fox 64. And alongside the 2 episodes of A Fox in Space. I'm really excited. I'm a big fan. I only recently learned about it. The second episode only came out a month or 2 ago. So it's still fresh and it smells great.
Yeah. And then after that, this is my pick. It's Donkey Kong Country. And we're not going to do the full series of the show. We're going to do like an episode because the TV show is both the game and the TV show, I think, are an example of how I can use my like lifetime experience of growing up with games and now having like, I don't know, again, being sort of a creative professional, can like critique the good and the bad, because I was a child when Donkey Kong Country came out, and it was like this idea of like, oh my God, we're moving into 3D.
Yeah.
And Star Fox is another good example of that, where they had to use the FX chip to make polygonal graphics
7
on the Super NES, and that they sold this to us as like, this is great. It doesn't matter like what it looks like. It's good.
Yeah.
You know? And then that was the trend in gaming for like 10 to 15 years, and still is in a lot of like AAA game like I'd say like studios.
It seems to really focus on frame rate now, is
like,
what a lot of people focus on.
Well, like the big AAA studios like that make the shitty games like your Call of Duties and stuff. It's like the hyper realism, and it's like we've kind of hit this point where we're just stuck in this uncanny valley. That's like, who cares? Yeah, give me something that's fun to look at, that has a really crisp, feels good to move frame rate, and like we just like, I don't know. I feel like these early Super Nintendo titles, they have their pros, but they were like harbingers of a depth to come.
An age of calamity.
An age of calamity in gaming, where it was hard to like make something that would stand the test of time. Because anyway, we'll get more into it with those episodes.
That's that Camp Video Game seal of approval. Thanks for hanging out. We are on Instagram at Camp Video Games. Please follow us. And if you're only listening to the audio version of this podcast, there is a video component to our gameplay episodes over at YouTube. Just search for Camp Video Games and subscribe. Do all that stuff. I just said the S words. But, I hope that prompts some of you to subscribe, because that'd be nice. I said it twice. I'm sorry. Thank you for listening, and good day.
If you'd like to write to us, send a message to campvideogames@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at campvideogames. If you want to become a real happy camper, you can support Camp Video Games on Patreon. For $5 a month, you'll be granted access to even more discussions about movie-based video games, game-based movies, full-length commentaries, playthroughs, and more. Whether you sign up or not, we're glad to have you here at Camp Video Games.